Continuing now on this day in history, October 12, 1492, Columbus reaches the New World, landing at San Salvador, thinking he had reached East Asia. 1776, British troops head up New York's East River, attempting to encircle General George Washington and his forces at Harlem Heights. But American troops would blow up the lone bridge between the peninsula and the mainland, stranding the Redcoats for 6 days. And on October 12, 1870, General Robert E. Lee dies peacefully at his home in Lexington, Virginia, at the age of 63. Lee commanded the Army of Northern Virginia for the Confederate States of America during the Civil War and is widely regarded as having possessed one of the greatest military minds in American history. He was educated at West Point and was one of its top graduates, eventually becoming the superintendent of the United States Military Academy. He served in the U.S. Army for 32 years, agonized over the decision of the southern states to secede, finally chose to follow his home state of Virginia, even though he personally had hoped that the Union would remain intact. Keeping the Union intact was also the goal of the first Republican president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. But unlike Lee, Lincoln regarded his first allegiance as belonging to the United States, not his home state of Illinois. A new tone was set for the Civil War early in 1862, when President Lincoln told the Confederate States if they did not end the fighting and rejoin the Union, he would free all the slaves in those states. Lincoln's actions quickly made the war not just about the Union against the Confederacy, but a fight for emancipation, and that is the subject of today's American Moment.
Abraham Lincoln began the war between the states with a single stated purpose: to preserve the Union. So it surprised everyone when in July of 1862, President Lincoln announced his intentions to issue an Emancipation Proclamation to free the Southern slaves. Lincoln was urged to delay his proclamation until the Union Army could boast a battlefield victory. That opportunity came at the Battle of Antietam, when Union forces drove Lee's army out of Maryland. 5 days later, on September 22, 1862, President Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, stating slaves in those areas still in rebellion within 100 days will be freed. This action made slavery the focus of the war and ultimately caused France and England to withdraw their support of the South. The following January, Lincoln issued the actual Emancipation Proclamation, stating that all persons held as slaves within the rebel states are, and henceforth shall be, free. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
From history to the here and now, as I mentioned earlier, Lincoln was the first Republican president. A lot of pundits are wondering if there will ever be another one. Miranda Kahn's here with a prime preview because this rift in the Republican Party. Now, let me get this straight. Some of the Republicans who said they were leaving Trump are now in retreat and reconciling.
I know. You're shocked, right?
Well,
yeah, we talked about this deep divide, right? Well, it appears to be narrowing just a little bit.
We tried to tell everybody, the rule used to be keep your powder dry, wait and see what develops. But when people run out in the street, they get situation. But if you get back to the corner, it's okay, I guess.
That's right. So yesterday we talked about the so-called GOP civil war, with many Republicans suddenly withdrawing their support for Mr. Trump. Now, some of those who seem to be working so diligently to try to derail the Trump train appear to be jumping back on board. One of those passengers includes Republican U.S. Senate nominee of Colorado, Darrell Glenn.
Donald Trump did what he absolutely had to do. I think he reset this campaign. People were wanting him to come out and show contrition, and he did that. He accepted responsibility. The other thing that he did, and this is something as a down ballot candidate that we've been frustrated about, he prosecuted the case against Hillary Clinton.
So Glenn, along with some other Republicans, had issued statements over the weekend denouncing Trump, even asking the GOP presidential nominee to step down and Pence to step into his place. So why the sudden change of heart, JD? Well, we're going to talk more about that tonight on Newsmax Prime.
Look forward to that very much, Miranda. I want to thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
And we've got some calls. Let me ask them back in the control room. Should we take calls now or take a look at what Trump? Okay, calls. Well, a couple of ladies have called in. First to Las Vegas for Tamara. Tamara, welcome to our program. I understand you have a perspective out there in the desert about both major candidates.
Yes, I do, and thank you for taking my call, Steve. When Trump's remarks are placed in perspective against the backdrop of the leaked emails that insult now not only Trump supporters, but Catholics, evangelicals, and now even the everyday American, as we find that Hillary Clinton extremely dislikes the term, I think we can see that there's a big difference between what Trump's remarks, stand for or don't stand for when they stand side by side with the emails that show a continued.
I hear what you're saying, Tamara. In other words, that this thing is changing and people taking a closer look at the Clinton campaign. What's the old saying? Those who live in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones. Tamara, we appreciate your perspective from Las Vegas. Let's go from way out west back to the eastern seaboard, albeit to western Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh is where we find Kathy. Kathy, I understand you're going to vote Republican across the board, even though you have your share of disagreements with Donald Trump.
Yes, that is correct, and thank you for taking my call.
Do I still have you, Kathy? Go ahead.
Yes, my belief is that, Hollywood, who brought out these tapes, has probably been the worst
offender,
abuser of women is treating them as sex symbols. And the fact that they are Hollywood and the entertainment business in general is so offended and outraged by Donald Trump's 12-year-old tape is ridiculous to me.
That's a real interesting point, Kathy, and I'm sitting here listening to you, and I hear you talk about, you look at movies today, and the subject matter deals with sexual promiscuity or sexual liberation or whatever. It's kind of like the irony also out of Hollywood, where you see so many weapons, bang, bang, shoot 'em up, and then those same actors in those movies are suddenly against the Second Amendment, your right to own a firearm. So that hypocrisy from Hollywood, I'll tell you, Kathy, I think that's a very valid point, and I very much appreciate the fact that you took time to call in. Now, again, let me consult my good friends in the control room. Trump now or what's to come tonight? Okay, very good. See, I have to get guidance from time to time. Television is all about teamwork. And the team gathering tonight to present Newsmax Prime at 8 o'clock Eastern will feature some great guests for us. Our old friend Dick Morris, who is not only the Newsmax political analyst, but also a guy who has advised presidents in the past. We will also talk to Bill Donahue of the Catholic League. As you might expect, he's not happy to see the emails from Mrs. Clinton's communications director to the head of one of the leftist think tanks, speaking ill of Catholicism. Israel Ortega and Juan Pablo Andrade will be here to discuss just what's going on in terms of Mr. Trump, Mrs. Clinton, and the Latino community. And we'll get some tips on the economy from Charles Lewis Sizemore. That, again, is tonight starting at 8, as we mentioned earlier. Miranda Kahn clued you in. She will take a look at a Republican rift that apparently is mending, but without using any crazy glue or any adhesive. We'll find out what is at work, perhaps political reality. And see you tonight at 8. Look for you tomorrow at 1, 2. Till then, thanks for watching.